All right, so tonight we're going to talk about cognitive development. Cognitive development is based on the research of a man named Jean Piaget. He was the first psychologist to make this systematic study of cognitive development, how the brain works and how we think. He became intrigued with the reasons children gave for their wrong answers to the questions, especially when the questions required logical thinking. He believed that the incorrect answers children gave revealed really important key differences between the way adults think and the way children think, thus, going into brain development. There are 4 stages of cognitive development. So from birth to 2 years in physical development, that's your neonatal stage. This is your sensory motor stage. This is the first stage of child's mental development. It involves the sensation. It involves touch. It involves your 5 senses. It involves motor skills. All right, that's why children of that age, one of the first things they do is they put things in their mouth. All right, that's how they learn about things. 2 to 7 is the pre-operational stage. In this stage, children use their mental ability to represent events and objects in various ways, like symbols or gestures or communication. 7 to 11 is the concrete operational. So it's this stage where logical thinking becomes more reasonable. All right, they're based more on logic than they are on intuition. And then 11 years of age through adulthood is your formal operational stage. So children become more systematic, reasonable. They can deal with tangible objects, things that they can touch, but they can also possess the capability of reasoning and thinking in abstract ways. Whereas in any of the previous stages, abstract is a difficult concept. So cognitive development according to Piaget. He came up with what was called the cognitive learning theory. This is the mental process by which knowledge is acquired, and it requires 3 things. The stimulus, which is the question, the response, which is the answer, and the thinking process, which is cognition itself. He believed that children and adults think differently from one another. He also believed that all behaviors related to cognition is developmental, and genetics and environment play a role in cognition, just as genetics and environment play a role in physical development. Key terms to know when it comes to cognition. Reflexes. Reflexes are simple blocks of cognition that help infants adapt. Schema are those reflexes categorized just like a computer organizes data. And finally, operations are logical thought processes. We learn 2 ways. The first is assimilation. This is fitting the new into the known. So when you're faced with a new vocabulary word and you see word parts that you already know or that look familiar, you assimilate that new information into the known and you come up with the definition. Accommodation is adjusting schema to fit new situations or demands. Adjusting these reflexes, adjusting these experiences you already have to fit new situations or demands. So a lot of that, if you think about like your English formal assessments, we teach students the standards, but we don't test them the same way we taught them. We don't give them the exact same piece of literature to answer questions about. We expect them to adjust for new pieces of literature so that they can apply their new knowledge. So 2 ways that we learned, assimilation and accommodation. Equilibration. So this is, equal, right? Striking a balance between the learner and his environment. So the learner is in disequilibration until they're able to assimilate and accommodate the new information. Until the pieces start fitting together like a puzzle, it's unequal, it's out of balance. And finally, the readiness approach. Children cannot learn something until they are mature enough to learn it. There are going to be some things that just happen with time as the child grows up. And intellectual development depends on what they are able to learn. And as we get into our further units, we're going to talk about physical disabilities as well as how students learn. So that's just a little introduction to Jean Piaget and cognitive development. Your homework will be to answer the discussion questions as they are posted on the blog. You'll need to do one post on your own, but then you'll also need to respond to your classmates. All right, here we go.